it's a problem because they've gotten their hearts and minds made up about where they're going to go. Because as we talk about, it's not about the money, but it's about the money.
Right. That's good. Yeah. Welcome to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa, brought to you by Elite Consulting Partners. It's the only podcast offering unfiltered guidance and a direct advice for all things concerning financial advisors, RIAs, and the practitioners in the wealth management business. And now, welcome to the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. I am your host, Frank LaRosa, with my co-host, Stacey Frank. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Happy to be back as always.
Awesome.
Thanks for listening.
This is going to be not really considered a hot mic episode, but I'm hot right now. So it might be a little bit of a hot mic episode.
Yikes.
Anyway, well, before I get into it, you can tell I'm hot because I just got off the phone with a client, and so I'm a little bit hot right now.
Energetic.
I just get hot when our clients are given the wrong information, or not the wrong information. There's a miscommunication between information being shared between firms, recruiters and recruiters at firms, and you as a financial advisor or our clients when they're considering different firm options. So just got off the phone with a client of mine that there seems to be a difference of opinion on what the deal terms were when they were sitting down and talking through them. So now I have to go play cleanup in aisle 7. Anyway, thank you for joining the show. We're going to hop right into it here. This show is designed to be a conversation amongst professionals, as if you're sitting in the room when you're having coffee with us and we're just talking shop. And we are always talking about things that are going on currently. Yeah,
these are conversations that actually occurred.
Right, like literally
an hour ago.
We're recording this show, and I literally hung up with the phone and walked in here. So I hung up the phone with the client and walked in here. So
you're changing the agenda
as we speak. So I was like, yeah, I'm not doing the one that we had planned. We're doing this one. So this is really about and again, the message here is maybe to the recruiters that work for the firms that are working with our clients. I'm going to ask you to be very mindful about when you're talking about approximate deal terms, right? You disclaimer it. You let our clients know that these are estimates only. It could change. We need information, right? Because what advisors, I've been doing this a long time, and what I've learned, now you do too, because we have these. You're having the same problem.
I've been in cleanup situations as well.
Right. When you tell an advisor that the range of their upfront is going to be somewhere between, I'm just making up numbers here, right? So protect the innocent. They'll be called later today, so they won't be so innocent later, or protected later.
Beware.
So when you tell an advisor the range of your upfront offer is going to be somewhere between $500,000 and $900,000, right? All they hear is $900,000. That's all they hear. Okay, and then when you come back with $400,000 for whatever reason, it's a problem because they've gotten their hearts and minds made up about where they're going to go. Because as we talk about, it's not about the money, but it's about the money.
Right.
That's good. Yeah.
And so it creates problems because it wastes time, it kills time, and it's making a move for a financial advisor. And I think this is where I think some recruiters don't understand. I understand because I actually move my own practice. So I understand what it's like. It's an emotional period of time for a financial advisor to move their practice. And if you're a recruiter out there and you're listening to this and you've never moved a book of business, you don't know what it's like. I don't care how long you've been in the business. I don't care how long you've been a recruiter. You don't know what it's like to call clients, have to go through that emotional roller coaster to make the decision, where am I going to move my business, what firm, why, how much money, the conversations they have with their spouses, the conversations they have with their friends. There's a lot that goes into it, right? And one of the things that goes into it is the money factor. And if on the outset of the conversation you are talking to them about high numbers and a wide range, and then you come back on the low end of that range, whether you meant to do it or not, it significantly hurts your relationship with the financial advisor because they think that you've almost not lying to them, but it's like a bait and switch.
Right, because I don't think the intentions of the firm recruiters are to put themselves in hot water. I think that they're just excited for the opportunity. They want it to seem like, look, it's a dating game. They're in the courting phase, and they want to really entice the advisor to want to consider their firm. It's competitive out there. So, you'd rather under-promise and over-deliver than, same thing on the payout. I've had a recruiter at a certain firm say to a large team, remember a few years ago, your payout will be somewhere in the 94 to 96 range when it really was 94, but all the advisor could think of was 96. Right. 96% payout. That is a massive difference for a $3, $4, $5 million team. Massive difference. So I don't think it's ill-intentioned. I just think the enthusiasm of wanting to keep the advisor's interest, but it really is detrimental.
Yeah, look, I think there's an excitement. You sit down, you're excited about the opportunity. It's no different than when we run pro formas for our clients. We tell them over and over and over again that these numbers are estimates only. They could be higher, they could be lower, but we're just trying to use industry numbers. So our growth rates are average growth rates that we use. Our tax rates are average tax rates that we use. We try to we try to be more conservative on the transition money, on the payouts, and more aggressive, meaning like when we build out the expenses. Right, so rent and utilities and all that other stuff, we actually lean towards the high side. So we build in more expenses than less expenses.
Right, worst case scenario.
Right. So that we're not over-promising some net payout that it's not able to get hit. I run a business, so I understand what, this office here. I know what utilities cost in this office, and it really bugs me when I get a pro forma from a firm and the advisor is taking down, 3,000 square feet of space, and the firm uses $300 for utilities. Like, not ever is the utilities $300. I mean, your cable bill isn't even going to be $300. Like, so those are the types of things that really piss me off, honestly, which is why I'm a little bit fired up right now.
And I think the advisors...
Now I have to go I have to make more phone calls. I have to do some cleanup. I have to understand they're pissed off, and not at me. And let me just understand, and I'm speaking to the recruiters out there. They don't get mad at me. They get mad at you. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm pointing to you. You know who you are. You know who you are.
Yeah.
Listen, the worst thing that a lot of times you're only going to get one shot at these advisors, right? Now, one shot, maybe for the next 10 years or something, right? But our goal is to move clients so that they never move again. So with our clients, you're only going to get one shot because we're going to bring them to the very best firm possible. And you have to, this is the scenario that I'm talking about where all the recruiter had to do was say, listen, there's a wide range here. If you're really looking for me to narrow the range, I need these 5 documents. Which is ultimately how we got to where we got to, because my client was saying, I met with him. This is what he said. I'm like, okay, that seems really, really high. But okay, if that's what he said, they didn't tell me otherwise. The recruiter didn't tell me otherwise. And so finally I was like, listen, we need to, in order for us to get the pro forma done the right way, we need to actually have more concrete numbers. So give me all of the information that we need, the book information and stuff like that. And I'll get that information to the recruiter, which is what he did. And then they came back with the real numbers, right? So I'm not saying that my client didn't give him the right information, but we gave him rough information on sort of the structure of the book of business. In this one particular case, the firm pays on assets versus T12. But like if you're a recruiter at a firm, and your deal is maybe more complicated to figure out versus like a T12 deal, right? Well, there's factors in there. Just tell the advisor, you need a snapshot of their book matrix before you can really give them a firm deal, because it's not fair for you to lead our client on with some wide range without you having seeing information. If you need to see information before giving them an actual deal, then just ask them for it. Because my clients in this case got me the information like in 24 hours, right? Because none of us wanted to. We were operating on this like speculative number, which is, again, you can't decide on moving your practice on a speculative number. So.
And I was going to just capitalize on that too. Maybe this is advice.
You had a situation,
more
same
for,
deal.
Maybe this is advice more for the advisor. Like, go through that initial discovery with the firms and the recruiters, and if they're giving you some parameters early on, that's great. Take it and just kind of store it in the back of your head. But until a customized individual pro forma or offer is presented to you, I just caution you, the advisor, to just be leery of that. Don't get your hopes up and think, oh, I'm going to get $900,000 or I'm going to get $2 million. Wait for that actual offer to come through, because nothing is definitive until it is. So,
especially when, in some cases, and it just is what it is, and we're not making any judgments here, but in some cases where the deal is a higher priority for you than some other things. I'm not saying that quality of firm and culture and stuff like that aren't a priority, but with some advisors that we work with, the deal is just a higher priority.
Yeah, no judgment here.
Listen, when I moved my business years ago, back in 1999, is when I moved my practice from Prudential Securities to Smith Barney. What I told the manager was, I said, culture and quality of the firm is number one in my decision, but a close second is the deal. Now, this is, mind you, that back then the deal was like 20%. 30%. And I was going to a retail firm. Yeah. I was going to Smith Barney. Yeah. And the deal was like 30%. So we're talking about like grapes and watermelons, right? Yeah. But the point was, the deal to me, because I was young, was still important, but it wasn't the driving. Like, I was going to the firm no matter what. He could have said, this is the most I can do, and I still would have taken it, right? Because I was already... That's the firm I wanted to be at. I wanted to be at Smith Barney for the quality. There's no other firm ever since then that's like Smith Barney. If you're listening to this and your legacy, you all know what I'm talking about. We all miss it. One of these days, someone will get the bright idea and bring back. Well, I guess there's some firms that are out there that are like that. But anyway, sorry, I digress. But so if you're an advisor that, culture of the firm is important, but deal, for whatever reason, personal reasons, you have weddings, you have things, you're recapitalizing, whatever it is, that deal is really, really important to you. What I would tell you is, at the very beginning of this process, you should have your information ready to go. Like, when you go meet with a firm, they're going to want information on your practice. They're going to want your total assets. They're going to want your revenue. They're going to want your assets by product, advisory, brokerage, annuities, 401ks. They're going to want all of that information. Just get it from the beginning, right? Just when you start taking phone calls, just get the information.
Yeah, so and like I said to an advisor literally yesterday, because we were talking about exactly this conversation, I said, our position is to, and the firms know that they have to put their best foot forward for you, the advisor, economically. It's competitive out there. And we tell our advisor clients, our value proposition is, we're going to push the firms to put their best foot forward for you. But in the end, money aside, and we were just talking about this before the podcast, your business needs to thrive, grow, and be supported on whatever platform you're considering, whether it's W-2 or 1099, doesn't matter. The economics will work themselves out or they won't. And just know that everyone's intentions, we're all rowing in the same direction.
Right.
The firms want to be competitive. We're trying to help the firms put their best foot forward on your behalf. But in the end, you have to look at this equation, money aside. So
yeah, because if you go to, you might get more money from a firm up front or like on a back end bonus, whatever. But if that firm is really not the right firm for your business, it'll end up costing you probably more money than really opportunity cost than the money that you got up front.
Correct.
Right. In my case, the clients that I'm working with, there's a group of them. And a couple of them are actually going in a different direction, and they're going to a firm because of that. They view it as a much better firm for their business in the future to build something of real quality, and they're foregoing the difference in money, and I applaud them for that, because they know what they're looking for. And it's not that the other option isn't right. it's just based on the advisor's personal situations and what they're trying to get out of. One of the gentlemen is older, so he's not going to necessarily be around and want to grow his business for the next 10 years, right? Where the higher payouts and better business model and services doesn't necessarily matter to him, right? But if he can get 2x the amount of money up front from firm A over firm B, then I don't blame him for necessarily taking that kind of money, right? Because none of the firms that we work with are crap firms. Like, it's not that we're going to bring somebody to a bad firm because they're paying a lot of money up front, right?
Right.
Some firms just have better economics than others. It just is what it is. And so the long story short, and I still have one more rant to go on this because I think it's relative. And where we're going with this really is these are the reasons why it's important to work with someone like us, right? And there's some other firms out in the industry that are good. There's a small handful of firms that I have a lot of respect for that are in our space that do a good job as well, right? But it goes to show why we do what we do and why you should be working with someone like us. Because now I have to sort of, had it not been for me pushing the envelope on this thing, right? These clients probably would have gone much further down the road towards moving to that firm, towards committing to that firm without the right information, right? And so I needed to sort of stop because I recognized okay, this is going down a road, but we don't even have a real offer yet, right? And this is where we make our money, right? We make our money by making sure that our clients, the financial advisor client, is getting the right information. It's accurate information. It's ultimately negotiated the best possible way. We get to be the bad guys, right? So we get to push the firms, versus you don't necessarily want to be the bad guy or gal because you're going to be working at that firm. Right.
And I just think that we have to make sure, and we just did some trainings internally here on this topic, that there really is a hierarchy within the deal. Because there are times where that upfront piece, that transition component, gets maxed. Mm-hmm. So what we're trying to uncover is if and when that is the case, where else can we find profitability? Is it in costs? Is it in pricing? Is it in payout? So that's one of the questions, not to give away the farm, that is really important for you, the advisor, to start thinking about early on is, okay, obviously everybody wants the largest check up front. Whether you say it's about the money or it's not about the money, that's always going to come into play, especially at the end. But where else? What other areas within the deal could be enthusiastic and opportunistic for you, the advisor?
Yeah, I have a client.
It's just not the whole story.
Right.
The upfront piece.
I have a client that one of the things that was important to them, we sort of maxed out the transition piece. The payouts were maxed out. Admin fee was as low as we can get it, and so we had the firm give them basically like a credit. It was a decent sized credit. I call it somewhere between, it was around $50,000 for client events like client document, signing like client dinners, picnics, or whatever they call it, where the clients were to come in, they pay for the dinner, pay for the event, they'll buy swag, stuff like that. That wasn't going to come out of the deal. Like, that was their deal. They got their money, the transition, all that other stuff, payouts, all that, and then here's another $50,000 on top to spend on stuff. Like, those are the types of things that we work at. We work with because, listen, we moved 198 unique advisors last year across 78 different firms. What that means is we see more deals than any other firm in the industry, right? We see more deals than any other third-party recruiting firm, consulting firm in the industry, which means we see all the nuances of all the different deals, and we get to take bits and pieces.
What are the levers?
Yeah.
What are the levers we can pull?
Right.
Push
so
and pull.
Right, exactly. So it's really important that you understand that if you're going to go down this road. I know this is we don't usually pitch this as hard, but I'm just a little bit pissed off right now. If you're going to go down this road of making a move, do not do it by yourself. Okay. You should be working with someone. There is so many options that it actually could be a detriment to your business because you will spend your entire days talking to firms, talking to the recruiters, and them telling you why they're the best things in sliced bread, right? But that's really the only thing that they have to sell, right? They only have a blue pen. For those of us that are old, remember the blue pen, red pen, right? They only have blue pens to sell, right? But we can tell you why the black pen is better, or the red pen is better, or the green pen is better, because we can bring you to those firms. Do not go this alone. It's not worth it. We were talking earlier on that, and I'm going to get into this because this is another hot mic for me. These firms have, they run economic models based on what they're going to pay people, right? Based on the deal they're going to give you. They're looking for an internal rate of return on the deal. And that's how they determine sort of how much money you're going to get. That's how they determine. That's why the deals have gone from 5 years to 7 years to 10 years, even a little bit longer now. If you're getting a back end, like one firm, you have a back end deal. It's a 7-year contract, right? But in year 3, when you get your back end bonus, that's a new 7-year contract. So it's not really 7 years; it's really 10 years, right? But then year 4 is another 7 years, so it's really 11 years. Point is, these firms also bake in our fees, right? Our recruiting, because the firms are the ones that pay us. And so our fee relative to the size of your deal over the amortization period, which is 10 years, does nothing to the deal. It has very little impact on the deal. So you're hurting yourself by thinking that, well, I don't want to use a recruiter because the firm is going to take their fee out of my deal and I'm going to make less money. That's not the case. As a matter of fact, I can tell you that we actually get our clients more money by working with them than if they went direct to the firm, because we know how to negotiate. We know. I have this sort of this. I'm going to whatever. I push the envelope so far that in the way I know I've negotiated as hard as I possibly can on behalf of my client is when I feel like the next words out of the firm's mouth are going to be, Frank, I'm going to say it, are going to be, Frank, go fuck yourself, right?
I tried. Listeners, I tried.
When I feel like, okay, if I ask one more time, that's probably the answer they're going to give me. Once I know that that's where I'm at, I know I've maxed out my negotiation power and opportunity for my client.
But all kidding aside, and obviously we appreciate the strength of what we're suggesting here, but it's always done professionally,
of course,
ethically, in the best interest of both parties. But look, everybody knows that money talks. The opportunity, that it's very competitive out there, and the firms know they're going to have to step it up to entice the advisor to choose firm A over firm B. It's
yes. Listen, it's why the deals are getting more aggressive.
Right.
On another note, there was an article that was posted recently. I think it was on wealthmanager.com, one of those rags, and it was talking about why, the fact that Raymond James in particular, this was an article about recruiting fees, so our fees, right? And the reason why Raymond James was attracting so many Commonwealth advisors was because the quote was something to the effect of, and it was actually by a good friend of mine, which I'm upset about.
Agree to disagree.
He's in the doghouse with me right now. The reason why Raymond James was winning so many Commonwealth advisors was because Raymond James was paying the recruiters a much higher fee. And candidly, I call bullshit to that. Number one, our fees have continued to go up year in and year out because
from all firms
across the board, right? Gone are the days when a recruiting firm is only getting paid 6%. Now, maybe some smaller onesie twosie shops they are, but the reality is firms need our help, need our guidance, need our support to help bring more. They want more at bats, and that's how they get more at bats, right? And so it's no different than it's sort of the opposite of how an advisor practices works right now, where compression, you have price compression, right? In our world, it's price expansion, because those firms need your client assets more than ever before, and it's going to keep growing. But back to my other point, when I talked to the editor, the writer of this article, what I said to him is what the article is missing, and where I take insult, and I don't actually take insult from me necessarily. I take insult on behalf of the advisors, because it's essentially saying that the advisor isn't smart enough to decide where they want to bring their practice. So they're only going to go based on where the recruiter, who most of these recruiters in our industry had no experience whatsoever, where the recruiter is going to tell them to go just because the recruiter is getting a higher fee, which is asinine. what I told him is, even if I was getting a 50% fee, which is not, I'm just making it up to be dramatic here, right? Even if my fee was 50%, I can never make a client go to a firm that they don't want to go to.
Right. I mean, we have to sleep at night. We have to
forget about that.
Right.
It's a fact. I can suggest where I think a client should go based on what I know about their business, and I can introduce that firm, and the firm is going to do their thing, and ultimately the advisor has to make a decision that that's the firm they want to go to, right? It doesn't matter what my fee is. I'm only going to get paid if the advisor goes to a firm, right? And so this article was sort of insulting, one, because it painted all of us with this brushstroke that we only base our decisions based on our fee, which is completely ridiculous. Some of our highest, our most successful recruiting firms, I mean the firms that we've brought firms to, are some of our lower paying, because some firms pay us less because they can't afford it. They can't afford
there's smaller firms.
They can't afford to pay.
But that's the right firm.
Fees. But it's the right firm, and that's what we bring.
That's the right firm.
That's the right firm, right? But it also speaks to the point that Raymond James is winning these Commonwealth advisors. Great, yes. So which means is they're getting more at bats. So maybe they are getting more at bats, but I think it's a combination of less a combination of some increased fee, because we've always been at the top range of whatever Raymond James has been paying, and Raymond James has been a top recruiter for many years when they had the lowest deal on the street and actually weren't even paying recruiting firms that much money, right? So I think what I see, the reason why they're being successful, forget about they have the culture, they have everything that meets that the Commonwealth advisors are really looking for, which is what I said early on in this whole thing. But they've increased their deal substantially to all firms, meaning to all advisors, not our deal, but they've increased their transition bonus substantially over where they have been for many years. So it was a timing thing, and that in and of itself will have a lot of the onesie-twosie recruiting firms that maybe hadn't shown clients to Raymond James because the deal was lower, meaning the recruiting deal was lower to the advisor, so there was a lower chance of them winning. And so there are a lot of firms in our space, unfortunately, that only show financial advisors firms that the firm itself, so that I don't want to call out anybody, but the broker-dealers themselves are the ones paying the highest deal to the financial advisor. There are recruiting firms that those are the only firms that will be shown to a financial advisor because in their mind they have the best chance of winning, right? And so when you work with a firm like a Raymond James, who typically doesn't have the highest deal, right? Because they don't believe in necessarily doing that. There's the value add stuff. You have to actually know what you're talking about when you talk about a firm like Raymond James, right? And why an advisor should go to a firm like that for less money. Sort of like what we're talking about.
That happens, and we've seen many opportunities.
All the time
where,
it happens.
They chose the firm that's giving them less money, but the better growth story, the better technology, the better support team, whatever it is.
And so I feel like
I
feel like this article was really misleading because I think it discounts quality firms like ours that take it very seriously and personally when we make recommendations on where we think an advisor should go, based on the conversations that we're having, the due diligence that we're doing, understanding the advisor's practice, and then figuring out where are they going to be the most successful, right? And yes, money plays a factor, but not totally, right? And then it also then doesn't take into account that ultimately it's the advisor that has to make the choice, right? Our fee doesn't matter. It's the advisor that has to make the choice on where they want to go based on what they think that they need to be successful. Exactly. And so I think the article was a little bit sour grapes because this particular person doesn't have a Raymond James contract. And so he's probably missed out on some opportunities. And so a little bit of sour grapes there. I think it was just written poor. I won't say it was written poorly because it was a well-written article, but I think it was very one-sided. And so for you as a financial advisor, that's just noise. Okay, you don't need to pay attention to those things because it doesn't matter. You ultimately, are going to go to a firm that you feel the most comfortable with.
And I think we talk about this all the time, just internally. We have to put our personal biases aside for, what we think would be the best firm for them. And ultimately, we will always interject our opinions. But we have to put our personal opinions aside about the firm's culture or who has the best deal, who doesn't have the best deal, who has the best technology, who doesn't. Because it's not our business, not our decision. We're just helping you all, advisors, come to your own self-realization of what's the best fit for you and your clients.
Yeah, listen, we had a client. You had a client a couple of years ago that was leaving. I think they were leaving Morgan Stanley, and it was a large multi-million-dollar team. And we had them introduced to a couple of firms. In this case, I think it was RBC and Raymond James, Alex Brown, and it didn't matter to us where the advisor went. We were going to get paid the same. Like I say to advisors all the time, like I get paid the same for the most part. There's some sort of parameters in there sometimes with larger firms where they'll pay us more with volume, but because of the size of our firm, we are usually at the top end of all the ranges. It doesn't matter to us, right? But what I told this advisor is, listen, I don't give a shit which firm you go to, and I say it like that.
Oh, we care.
Jokingly,
of course we care.
I say it like that to make the point.
Right.
But I felt like they were going to the wrong firm. Ultimately, they went to RBC. Not that RBC is a bad firm; it's a good firm. But I thought that based on what they were looking for, that the services and the platform were better at Alex Brown at the time, as well as the deal, right? We talk about the deal and the aspects of the deal. And when you added up all of the things over a 10-year period of time that Alex Brown was giving his team, sales support help, analysts paying for another analyst, like $100,000 a year for an analyst. Well, okay, if the deal's a 9-year deal, that's $900,000 that you don't have to take out of your own pocket.
Yeah.
So the actual deal itself was better at Alex Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Long term.
Right.
But they fell in love with a manager. I think we did that episode called "Don't Fall in Love with a Shiny Object," right? They fell in love with the manager. Good for him. That just happened to be a better recruiter, better storyteller. He was able to convince them that they were better off. Now they're happy there, and that's awesome. They're still there. Right. I'm happy for them. But the point is, we will tell somebody if we feel like they're not going in the right direction, right? But ultimately, it's your business. It's your decision. But you come to us for our opinion, and we're going to give you our opinion.
And the whole story.
And the whole story. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Not about the money, it's about the money. It's always going to be a really, it is a priority, no matter how you cut it. But money aside, there has to be all those other things to tell the full story.
Yeah. So anyway, I know we're ranting. You get the point, right? You need to be working with a consultant. Don't worry about don't worry about what their fee is. It's no different because it's not coming out of your economics. They're not saying, well, your deal is going to be, $2 million, but we're going to give the recruiter $100,000, so your deal is only $1.9 million. That's not how it works. If you work with the right recruiting firms like ours, we'll actually get you more money because we know how to play the game. We know what levers to pull. We've seen the different transactions. Candidly, we are the largest firm in the industry, so we do more volume with most of these firms than any other firm, which means
we've seen more.
Well, we've seen more. They want to make sure that our clients are taken care of because they want to be on our good side. Not that I don't want to sound sort of arrogant. Maybe it came across arrogant, but they want to play nice in the sandbox with us because they want us to introduce them to more of our clients because we have a lot of them. So, listen. Be mindful when you're going through this process. Have your documents prepared. Already have your images, or whether it's photo. You're taking pictures of your production, your book breakdown, all those other things. But when you're having conversations with the internal recruiters initially, and you're talking about economics, sort of like Stacey, what you said, don't hyper focus on the first things that come out of that recruiter's mouth, right? Just take it and say, okay, that's an interesting range. I would like to have a more firm number.
Something more definitive.
More definitive. That's where you give them the information that you have, and they'll come back with a more definitive number. Doesn't mean that's the end number, but it's a closer number for us to work with to make, sort of like, okay, great, it's close enough. Let me put that over here on the side Now let's talk about the other things, the fundamentals of the firm, the culture, the technology.
Yeah, and that's why when we get questions, and we hear this all the time, even when we do our initial outreach, what are the deals like, Frank?
Yeah.
What are the deals like out there? And you're being short-sighted because it is customized. It does depend on a lot of things. So just don't be so nearsighted on that.
I use it like the analogy of, and again, I'm not necessarily a big golfer anymore, but I use the analogy of like you going up to the first tee box and you meet somebody for the first time,
right.
and they find out you're a financial advisor, and they say, oh, it's interesting. I just inherited $1 million. What would you do with it if I gave it to you? Right? You're not going to answer that question.
It's the
right?
same thing.
Right. You're going to say, well, there's a lot that goes into that. I need to understand your background. I need to understand your financial situation. I need to understand your portfolio. Blah blah blah. Why don't we sit down after you play around the golf, and I'll get to know you some more. Right? It's the same thing that we go through, that you want to go through when you sit down with a recruiter for the first time. Them telling you, hey, the range is $500 to $1 million. Well, I can drive a truck through that, so that's not helping me at all, right? Having a range is good to understand, but there are a lot of variables. Every firm looks at things differently. They look at, some firms pay on 401k business, some firms don't pay on 401k business. Some firms pay on T12, some firms are based on AUM. Some firms pay more on assets held away than others. Some firms don't pay anything on assets held away. Right? You're using SCI or some other third party asset manager. Some firms aren't going to pay you on that on a transition. They'll give you a payout, but they're not going to give you transition money on that.
Right.
So there's lots of factors that go into how a firm structures their deal for you, and it's more complicated sometimes than saying you do $1 million. Here's what your offer is.
Yeah, you have to go through the process.
You have to go through the process.
Have to.
So anyway, with that said, we appreciate you listening. This is sort of a rant, a hot mic. I covered 2 different topics that I was hot over this week.
Okay.
Stacey's like,
lots of good content.
You're okay now.
We can breathe now.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, thanks for listening to us. I hope you enjoyed this show. I hope you learned something from this show. Be aware. That's all. Just be aware. If you want to have a conversation with us about what you're working on, you can obviously call Stacey at
856-816-6322 or Stacey at eliteconsultingpartners.com. Stacey, don't forget the E. Or Frank at
856-316-4651. My assistant Mary will answer. And you can email me at frank@eliteconsultingpartners.com. You can also check me out on my my Instagram account, which is franklarosa.elite. You can DM me or you also on LinkedIn. We're always online. And we'd love to help you. Love to have a confidential conversation. Even if you're talking to a couple different firms already and you're a little bit confused, which happens all the time, we can help you sort of distill some of the fog that you're looking at right now. So anyway, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. If you're looking for more advice or solutions on any topics relating to the financial services industry, or just want to subscribe to our podcast, head on over to eliteconsultingpartners.com/podcast.